Welcome back to my little channel. It has been a while that I last addressed feminism, and well, it is one of the things that I started my YouTube channel over. Not the main thing, but one of them, and maybe I should once again address someone who tries to explain to us why feminism is a good thing. I hope you enjoy this one. Here we go.
Alright, hey, what's up YouTube? Little Bucket here, coming at you again from Michigan. Today, as you can tell by the title, I'm going to be talking about feminism.
Yeah, we all like ourselves some feminism. No, that's nasty of me. No, I shouldn't do that. Well, I did. Never mind that.
Which I'm really excited to be talking about, even though I've been working on this video for like 3 hours and deleting a bunch of stuff and redoing it.
In all fairness, 3 hours to work on a video isn't that long, or at least not to me, but then again, maybe I'm crap at it as well.
So, if you're watching now, this is the final product that I popped out.
And this is my response with some questions and remarks, and yeah, I'll not mention how long it took me to make this because I chose to make it. It's my fault if I spend time on this.
So, as I said, I've been working on this video for multiple hours now. First I was gonna make it all one video, then I was just gonna scrap it and do a completely different video, but I was like, no, I wanna talk about this. This is why I made my YouTube channel, so we're just going with it. I'm just gonna have to do it in parts. So today, we're just gonna be talking about what is feminism.
And no doubt, I have plenty of reasons to say, yeah, no. So let's go.
So it's not really so much why am I a feminist yet, but we're gonna get there. Because before we can even dive into why I'm a feminist, I think that we need to talk about what is feminism so we can know why I'm a feminist.
Yeah, I tend to think that once you know what feminism is, you don't want to be a feminist. But hey, that's just me. Let's dive in.
So, this is what feminism is. So, there's been some debate whether or not you can use dictionary definitions for things like this because it's just a generic definition. It doesn't go into depth about like what the movement stands for or anything, but I'm going to be reading these definitions just to give you like at surface what feminism is.
Yeah, no, first off, of course we can use dictionary definitions. It's just useless. After all, the dictionary definition of what a democracy is and what the Democratic Republic of North Korea are two different things. Even though democratic means democracy and the definition of democracy is... I'm rambling, never mind. No, go on. Explain to me why your definitions of feminism from the dictionaries are correct and I will debunk them.
So I'm going to be giving you the Oxford Dictionary definition and the Merriam-Webster's definition. So we're going to start with the Oxford Dictionary definition, and that is, feminism is the advocacy of women's rights on the ground of equality of the sexes. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. On that definition, I don't get why you wouldn't want to be a feminist.
Yeah, you know, it's not so much that I'm against it. It's the same thing as democracy and the Democratic Republic of North Korea. But hey, go on, continue.
But we're just talking about the definitions. We're not talking about the stigmatism around feminism. We're just talking about the dictionary definitions. So, then we go over to Merriam-Webster's, and she has two definitions. First one is the theory of the political, economic, and social equality of the sexes. But then their second definition is the organized activity on behalf of women's rights and interests.
Funny enough, that second definition comes close to the truth now, doesn't it? Because it's not about equality, it's about what women want. That's okay though, just recognize it and be honest about it. Kind of funny that it's only the second definition, and I understand why you have somewhat of a problem with that, because it bursts your bubble.
So the reason why I want to read both those definitions because I think that the second part of Merriam-Webster is pretty important in regards to comparing feminism to egalitarianism.
You know, you're absolutely right. That second point is indeed the crucial thing about the difference of feminism and egalitarianism. But Continue.
And the reason why I want to do that is because I hear a lot when talking about feminism to some people, they'll be like, well, I just identify as an egalitarian, and why wouldn't you? Why do you have to go ahead and have your own little separate feminist thing?
Funny enough, you don't recognize that this in itself is an explanation that feminism isn't about egalitarianism, isn't about equality. But you're going to let that slide, aren't you?
So, before we get into that, I'm going to read you the definition of egalitarianism. So the definition of egalitarianism, we're just going to use Merriam-Webster. They have two again, because Merriam-Webster likes to have two definitions. So the first one is a belief in human equality, especially with respect to social, political, and economic affairs. Reasonable. The second definition is a social philosophy advocating the removal of inequalities among people. So it's like, yeah, that definition is super similar to what the definition of feminism is, except for feminism is specifically focusing on women.
And that's what's wrong with feminism. Equality seems to think that we should focus on everyone, where feminism only seems to think we should focus on women. They don't mind male inequalities, but we'll get to that eventually. Know this much though, feminism isn't about equality, it's about the equality of women. The question is, of women against what? Because that's not mentioned anywhere.
Some people will think that that's unfair, or why do you need a whole movement specifically focused on your problems? My thought is, why don't we need a whole movement focusing on our problems? Yeah, egalitarianism is great. It's this broad umbrella wanting to make everybody equal, but feminism specifically hits on women's issues and gender issues. I don't think that there's anything wrong with having the big umbrella of egalitarianism and breaking it down into smaller groups.
And that's why feminism isn't equality, egalitarianism, because it wants to segregate. And trust me, my dear, feminism doesn't care about genders either, as long as those genders are not female. Do you know what a TERF is? A trans-exclusionary radical feminist. So yeah, feminism doesn't care about most of the stuff you just mentioned. Never mind that.
So think of egalitarianism like a grocery store. The grocery store is where you go to get groceries, hence it being a grocery store. And in said grocery store, you have aisles where you can find certain items. And it's organized into different categories, even though overall it is a grocery store. There are specific aisles where you can find specific groceries. Just as when you look at egalitarianism, it's this big, broad thing that wants to cover all social injustices and make sure everybody's equal. But for purposes of organization, we have separate groups. So we have the aisle of feminism, we have the aisle of Black Lives Matter, etc. So in these aisles, much like the grocery store, in these aisles of social justice movements, we have the feminist aisle, and in that aisle it addresses specific issues regarding women and gender and sex.
When you recorded this, you should have listened to what you were saying, because do you realize that in this little bit you are advocating for segregation? But I do admit that I like your supermarket analogy, because you're right, this is what feminism does. Domestic violence, female victims. Yeah, we want to talk about that. Domestic violence, male victims. No, that's not a problem. Shelters for female victims. Yeah, no, definitely. We need to work on that. Shelters for male victims. Yeah, no, that's just wrong. That doesn't happen. Domestic violence on children. Well, as long as it's done by a husband, it's okay to mention it. But when it's done by the mother, yeah, we shouldn't talk about it. Rape. Yeah, it's terrible that these men always rape women. Let us never ever address the fact that men can get raped too. And Yeah, but they only get raped by other men. Yeah, no, not really, because force to penetrate is still a thing. Men can get raped by women, though not everywhere. For example, the UK doesn't even allow females to be charged with rape because, hey, force to penetrate isn't a thing there. And feminism is pushing these things. It's true, it's like a supermarket. They take out what they want and they leave the rest. But it's very much segregatory. Go on, continue though, never mind me.
If you went to a grocery store and there were no aisles, there was just groceries all over the place. You had no idea where to find the stuff that you are looking for at the grocery store. So without these subcategories of egalitarianism like feminism and Black Lives Matter...
No, not subcategories within equality. You're talking about segregation.
There is no organization, there is no bringing people together of similar backgrounds who have experienced these issues and understand things that other people might not understand who haven't experienced these issues firsthand.
Yeah, because reality needs to step down from lived experience.
So the reason why these little groups are so important is because it puts focus and it puts organization.
On segregating our society, yes, we know.
Not one person or one idea cannot do it all.
No, on that you're wrong. One idea can do it all. Not one person, obviously, but one idea can do it all. If you want equality for the people, you should strive for equality and not for segregation.
We need teamwork, we need multiple groups going after different things.
No, we need everyone going after the same thing, equality.
You can also look at the way the United States government is set up. The president isn't doing everything. There's the different branches there, and even in the branches there's multiple people working in that, and it goes smaller and smaller and smaller. So there's nothing wrong with breaking up the big picture into smaller pictures and working on it from the inside out.
That would be nice if everyone would be working towards the same goal, but equality and segregation do not combine. They are not the same goal. And it's a bad analogy, I'm sorry, it really is. Because let's be honest, look at Democrats and Republicans. They're both in the government, but they're not really working together now, are they? You
can't just tackle a big thing like that, you need to work at it little by little.
Little by little, being one step at a time? Yeah, I agree. Little, by segregating the groups? No, I disagree.
And so it puts focus on specific issues, it puts in some organization, and without this organization and without these focuses, they aren't done as quickly and they aren't done as efficiently. And there's nothing wrong with all of these groups supporting each other. They're all intertwined in the big egalitarianism umbrella, but these different groups have different problems.
No, they're inherently not within equality and egalitarianism because they are segregatory. I keep repeating my point. If you talk about one group and ignore all the other groups, you are not talking about equality. You are talking about, in all fairness, supremacy.
However, they are very similar problems, and that does not need to say that being a feminist you shouldn't care about Black Lives Matter, or being Black Lives Matter you shouldn't care about feminism. They're all intertwined, and so that's where intersectionality comes in, and that's a whole nother video. But all these groups need to work together in the big egalitarianist bubble, umbrella, but there's nothing wrong with having separate names for these separate groups that focus on their specific issues.
Yeah, and there we have it, intersectionality. All oppressed groups need to work together, and yeah, feminism is the one to lead them in the charge. Never mind the fact that at one point, gay guys were considered a suppressed group, an oppressed group even. But now, not so much, because they've basically gotten everything they wanted. They outgrown feminism, so to speak, or they recognize what feminism is and stopped caring for it. The same thing is, now Black Lives Matter needs to be brought to heel to feminism, whilst at the same time the two things have nothing to do with each other. It's all about segregation. It's all about, well, look at how poor I have it. Look at how oppressed I am. It's identitarian politics. It's victim complex politics. It's not egalitarianism. You're not in it to be equal to others. You're in it to prove how oppressed you are. This is a problem. This is not how you're going to save the world. It simply isn't.
So to keep it short and simple and to the point, feminism to me is just making sure that everybody is equal on the basis of their sex and their gender, and no one is discriminated against, with a concentration on focusing on issues that women face.
So how far of a concentration on the things women face should we go in? And if we're all equal, how come certain laws are there to protect women but not men? And in all fairness, there are more laws protecting women than there are men. Men don't have any reproduction rights. Did you ever consider that? And yes, there are plenty of problems in our society. They're not mostly facing women. They're not mostly facing minorities. It's the identity politics that make it sound like this. But in reality, this is not the case. We're never going to solve these problems as long as people keep segregating the groups that need help. In all fairness, that's what you're doing. You're segregating people and women. But women are part of people, aren't they?
That being said, there are issues that men have. Feminism is all about getting rid of all of those gendered rules that society has constructed. But in general, there is male privilege in society.
You sure about that? In America, women have the right to vote. Men have to register for the draft to be allowed to vote. That's just one of the many things. There are more, of course. I mentioned before the inequalities when it comes to help offered to victims of domestic violence. I mean, as a woman, yeah, sure, no, they're ready for you. As a man, no, fuck you, you can't be a victim. The whole Duluth model is based on it's the man's fault. No, trust me, feminism did nothing for men. It still does nothing for men. But it pretends to, I grant you that.
That's also a whole nother video, so we're not going to get into that. But feminism, it's called feminism because its focus is on women issues, because there are more laws and societal constructs that hurt and oppress women than there are that hurt and oppress men.
Okay, you know what? Let's give it a try. Name 5 of those laws that hurt and oppress women. And trust me, I will be able to counter them with 5 that hurt and oppress men. But that's not the point. You claim that there are more for women, so feel free to name a few. I'm looking forward to that.
And it's nothing to feel ashamed about if you're a man. That's just the way society is. No one's trying to make you feel guilty, but we just need to work together to change the way our society is and change the laws and change the constructs. And that's what feminism is all about.
Oh, I agree. It's nothing to be ashamed of, man. Mind you, men, feel powered that, thank God, less than 20% of the women in the Western world consider themselves feminist. Most of them are smarter than that.
So in conclusion, reason number 1 why I'm a feminist is because I support the idea of equality across sexes and genders. If you're a man or a woman, doesn't matter. You should be treated the same. No one gender or one sex is better than the other, with specifically fighting to end the systematic oppression that our society perpetuates, keeping women down.
You know what? I'm 100% willing to believe that you do think that people should be equal, people should not oppress other people. I really, really want to believe that this is truly what you believe. Unfortunately, this is not what feminism wants. This is not what feminism advocates for, so I'm not really sure why you keep pushing that. But no, I want to believe that you believe in an equal society. So why do you call yourself a feminist again?
which we will get into details on that further in the future videos. So I hope this short video kind of explained what feminism is. If you have any questions, I can always readdress it. Just drop your questions down in the comments.
Yeah, so this is where I end her video. It goes on a little bit to tell people like, share, subscribe and stuff like that. Fair enough. I did put in this bit though, because yes, this is my list of questions. This is me wanting to engage you. This is me opening a dialogue. This is me inviting you. Even if you want to, we could do it on a hangout, but to respond. Because the problem with feminism is not that it exists. The problem is that there are too many people pretending it's a good thing for society, even though reality proves them wrong time and again. As I said earlier, I can give you many examples of how the law is in favor of women and not in favor of men. And yet still, feminism keeps calling how the law is in favor of women. The gender pay gap has been debunked so many times. You didn't mention it. Thank God you didn't mention it, because it isn't true. Domestic violence. Yeah, okay. 60% of domestic violence victims is female, which is way too high. But 40% of it is male, and there is hardly any help for them. Both of them are too high, don't you agree? And that's not taking into account that out of those 60% of female victims, there is a large part of them who are actually instigators of the violence, but they lack the physical strength to actually end it. I could go on. There are plenty of things that could be mentioned, and do not get me wrong. I wholeheartedly believe in equality. Feminism is against equality. Again, I just mention, go to any divorced couple and ask the man of that couple how his visitation rights are. The thing is, we are so agreeing with poor women sort of rhetoric that we forget that reality is very different. And everyone who mentions the fact that reality is different is either an MRA or a misogynist. Sorry, I wanted to say misandrist. Misogynist, or you're anti-woman, or you're a sexist. No, this is not about the sexes. This is about certain groups wanting to have supremacy over other groups. And yes, sorry, feminism has from the very get-go been a supremacy movement. Because they fought for things that men did not have either. Even though people still like to think that this is the case. Anyway, this is where I stop my little rant. Like, share and subscribe if you feel so inclined. Criticism, as always, is more than welcome. And yeah, this is an open invitation for anyone actually to invite me or be invited by me for a hangout to discuss this. Or feel free to make counter arguments. Anyway, that's it for me. Be good and thank you for your time.